without hatred or resentment. Whether standing, walking, sitting, lying down, or whenever awake, one should develop this mindfulness. This is called divinely dwelling here. Not falling into erroneous views, but virtuous and endowed with vision. Removing desire for sensual pleasures, one comes never again to birth in the womb. With this metta thought, let us begin our practice. We are in focus the mind on our breathing and notice inhaling as inhaling, exhaling as exhaling. Notice long inhaling as long inhaling, long exhaling as long exhaling, short inhaling as short inhaling, short exhaling as short exhaling, and then the beginning, middle and end of each inhaling and exhaling, and a pause between inhaling and exhaling. And then you notice the entire breathing process. Then you notice the body, mind, breath, all are calm, relaxed and peaceful. This normally happens this way when we pay attention to the breath without verbalizing or conceptualizing and letting the breath flow in and out. Then as we breathe in and out, body, mind, breath, everything becomes calm, relaxed and peaceful. At that time, greed does not arise. It fades away. Greed is a hindrance. Once it got out of our way, then mind becomes even more calm, relaxed and peaceful. That time we feel metta feeling. It is just a feeling, not a word or concept, but mentally we feel that we are one with the universe, that like to be peaceful and happy, no matter in what situation, what condition they are. They do the same thing as we do. They breathe in and out. Even though they may be engaged in countless other activities, while they are performing their activities, whatever, they breathe. And in that respect, we all are one. We all like to be peaceful and happy, healthy, and so on. So we want that, and therefore we all feel metta feeling, no greed, no hatred, no resentment. That fades away from our mind at that time. Then as everything is so calm, relaxed and peaceful, we may even feel sleepy and drowsy. That is another hindrance. We want to get rid of it in order to make progress by visualizing bright light. When we visualize bright light, our sleepiness and drowsiness fades away naturally. You know, when you want to sleep, you turn off all the light and make the room dark. If you want to wake up, you turn on the light. Similarly, when you feel sleepy, you are like in the dark. When you don't have sleepiness and drowsiness, you are like living under light. So we overcome our sleepiness and drowsiness visualizing bright light. Then it may be possible to have excess energy, which can lead to restlessness and worry. Restlessness and worry arises due to various memories, ideas, beliefs. Sometimes, since we have seen, heard, smelled, tasted and touched countless things in our life, when the mind is trying to be calm, you may remember some of those activities. Mental activities, physical activities, you may remember. Or you may remember some kind of traumatic experience. Also, it is possible to recall things you have done incorrectly, wrongly. Or you have done certain things incompletely. They are done incomplete. So you want to, your mind will go there. Or we might think of the future, remembering certain things that you have not done and you want to do it very quickly, and your mind goes to the future. We must avoid these two extremes, the past and the future, and focus the mind on the present moment, present occurrence, our breath, feeling, perception, thought, volition. These are the things that are present always in us. We direct our mind on that impermanent nature. Then also we may have some doubt with regard to the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, morality, and your own practice. And that is why I mentioned earlier, remembering past things or recalling or planning the future, we brought the mind to the present moment, which is the breath. And then when doubt arises regarding the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha and our practice, we simply have to think of the wonderful qualities of the Buddha, who attained full enlightenment by his own effort without any teacher, no physical teacher, but his teacher was the Dhamma, that is impersonal truth, reality, law. So he used the Dhamma, this law, for attainment of enlightenment. And then he made this Dhamma as his own teacher. He instructed us to follow the Buddha and his teacher Dhamma. We follow that. We follow the Buddha, Dhamma, and we want to achieve great success. So, we also have to remember those marvelous enlightened disciples who followed the Buddha's footsteps and attained enlightenment. We are following the same tradition, same lineage of attaining enlightenment, and we also follow the same path, same method. We have already overcome our greed, resentment, restlessness and worry, and that gives us confidence. So we can overcome all our doubts by building up our confidence. Once these hindrances are out of our way, mind will be glad, full of joy, a joyful state of mind, gain concentration very easily. First one gains joy, which increases by degrees and become happy. Happy state of mind gains concentration. Once we gain concentration, then we use that concentration to see that very clear state of mind. With that concentration, we want to see rising, falling, appearing and disappearing nature of body, feelings, perceptions, thoughts and consciousness. They are also constantly changing. We also want to experience that. We do experience them, but don't pay much attention to it. So I hope we continue our practice.
Okay, Bhante, can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you.
Okay. So the first question is regarding the Arupa Jhana. You talked last time about using the sharp and clear mind at the Arupa state in order to enjoy sukha, peaceful liberation, and to eradicate defilement. And this has to do with this sutta, the Pari-nibbana sutta, when the Venerable Anuruddha told Venerable Ananda that the Buddha hadn't gone into Pari-nibbana yet. He had reached the Arupa Jhana of cessation of feeling and perception. And the person wonders why the Buddha did not exit into peaceful liberation immediately from Arupa Jhana, but instead the Buddha goes the Buddha descends from the highest arupa jhana back to the first rupa jhana, and then he goes to the second, the third, and the fourth jhana, and then only after this he goes into Pari-nibbana. What's the significance of exiting from the fourth jhana and going through all the jhana back and forth?
Well, that is, I think most people don't understand all this, but yes, the reason is not given in any text, but we can assume the reason. This is my interpretation. Perhaps if somebody else has another interpretation, they may come up with that. Then if it is better than what I think, I would accept it certainly. The reason why I think Buddha attained Pari-nibbana in the fourth jhana, although he went up to the last stages, Sanya, Vedita, Nirodha, he came back to the fourth. When somebody is in Sanya, Vedita, Nirodha as an attainment, that person can stay can stay for 7 days. Now the Buddha has decided to pass away on that particular day at that time. So if we attain the cessation of perceptions and feeling, then he would stay for another 7 days. But he did not want to do that. So he returned to the fourth jhana, where he has control. As you know, when somebody attains the fourth jhana, there are two options. One is going in the direction of attaining Sanya, Vedita, Nirodha, or second option is to destroy all the defilements and attain Nibbana, attain liberation in this very life. And then even in the final liberation, that's called Pari-nibbana, or Nirupadisesa, Anupadisesa Pari-nibbana, or Nirupadisesa Pari-nibbana, that is leaving no trace of existence, pass away. And that is the second possibility that Buddha chose, because that was he was very specific. 3 months ago, he said on such and such a day, I would attain Pari-nibbana, I would pass away. And he wanted to keep with that commitment, that promise. And therefore, he did not go to the cessation of perceptions and feeling after attaining the fourth jhana, but he passed away. And he came back to the fourth jhana and passed away at that jhana. So, that is the reason why he did that. That is my interpretation. Okay, another question.
Next question. Dear Bhante, yesterday you taught us about how seeing the fetter that arises dependent on the sense base and sense object enables us to overcome defilements. Is this type of seeing only possible if the mind is very still in Samadhi as in jhana or near a jhana state. It takes a mind that is very still and clear to be able to do this, or can we also practice this seeing in daily life, in daily activity?
Okay. In daily activities, you can overcome temporarily. That is called factorial suppression or factorial abandoning. But when you attain jhanas, you can overcome hindrances for as long as you are in the jhana. And all the fetters can be overcome gradually when you attain the fourth level of enlightenment. Now, when you gain concentration, however, it is much easier for you to attain that state. When you are near concentration, that is called upachara samadhi. Some people coined that word, upachara samadhi, that means near full concentration. That is possible because some people, while listening to Dhamma, attain stream entry, like Upali Sutta, you can see that, and then Suppabud, the leper, attain that state while listening to Dhamma talks. And the Venerable Khemaka's audience in Samyutta Nikaya, you can see this report when Venerable Khemaka was explaining the non-existence of permanent self. The monks who were listening to him, while listening to his discourse, they attained full enlightenment. But while listening to a discourse, you are not in the jhanas, but your concentration is extremely powerful. So many people have attained enlightenment, stream entry, while Buddha was delivering sermons, listening to sermons, and that is called Vinivarana Chitta, the mind free from hindrances. The moment mind is free from hindrances, your concentration is very good, and the next moment you get full concentration. So the difference between full concentration and near concentration is very, very narrow, very narrow. You are almost in the vicinity of full concentration, and that has almost the same power. If we put in terms of figures, percentage perhaps, we might say that is almost 95% concentrated and only 5% remain to attain the full concentration. Yeah. Okay.
Next question. What function notices the arising of the notion of I? What mental function is responsible for noticing the arising of the notion of I?
Arising and a falling of I?
The notion of I.
Notion of I. That's what the person wants to know?
Yes, which function notices when the I arises? Which aggregate notices the arising of the notion of I?
I see. I, capital I, right?
Yes, capital I.
Yes. The function of I, if one was to perpetuate it, think about it again and again, that drags you to eternalistic belief, eternalism. There are two extremes, nihilism and eternalism. Nihilists are very strong materialists. Eternalists are spiritual people who think that they practice morality, concentration, and so forth. They are not very much interested in material things, but they are deeply involved and committed to practice spiritual things. They attain jhanas and they overcome many of their hindrances, almost all hindrances they overcome. And they think by attaining jhanas, even the neither perception nor non-perception state, they think that is the highest attainment, but they have permanent self that goes from life to life, life to life, life to life. Now that is this wrong grasp of permanent self, grasp of the view that there is a permanent self. That is the function. That means the person will drag into samsaric existence, repetitive birth and death again and again and again in many different forms. And that would not bring our suffering to an end. So long as we have this view, we can have conceit, pride, and then from that arises greed, that arises hatred, jealousy, and fighting, and all these other negative mental, physical, emotional states can arise from that belief of permanent self. Yeah.
But when we think of I, what notices I is consciousness that notices this I?
Yeah, some people in Maha Tanna Sankhya Sutta, Sati, Venerable Sati, thought it was the consciousness that goes from life to life. So he thought consciousness is I. I think I mentioned yesterday there are 20 ways of thinking about I, 20 ways. That is body and this permanent I belief are identical, and then or form is in the I, or I is in the form, or I and form are different. These are and that goes with consciousness as well. I is in the consciousness is in the I, consciousness and I are identical, consciousness and I are different, and so forth. So, some people believe the body is I, sometimes they think feelings are I, and sometimes people think consciousness is I. Not only consciousness, but all the 5 aggregates they take in turns. Whichever the person is accustomed to, attached to, that is the one that person thinks as I. All pivot around 5 aggregate. Consciousness is one of them. Okay, next question.
Bhante, we have a question along this same vein about this sutta, Majjhima Nikaya 38, and so I'll jump to that one. The question is, Bhikkhu Sati had this pernicious view that that same consciousness, it's that same consciousness that wanders through the rounds of rebirth. Could you please advise us what takes rebirth if it's not that consciousness that takes rebirth? What is it? Can you please clarify? That's the question.
Yes, that is very common question people ask whenever we have a discussion on non-existence of permanent self. This question comes up. They ask this question: if there is no permanent self, what is taking rebirth? Now, this is where we need to understand dependent origination. Depending on the karma, greed, that is desire, ignorance, and consciousness, these four factors work together to make rebirth possible. That is, when somebody is going to pass away, the mental state arises that can create an image of next the place where the person is going to be born. Animal womb, human womb, divine realms, or some places where they cannot, they are not happy, like woeful states of existence and so forth. Some of them are not desirable, like animal womb is not desirable. Hellish condition is not desirable. But because of our desire, ignorance and karma, at that particular moment, the place that the person is going to be born appears to be very attractive, very beautiful. And that is the thought, that is the vision arising in the mind. That is one thought moment. Next thought moment, the person dies, and that thought moment reproduce a life potential or possibility in that particular place, womb of a being, or woeful state. So this phenomenon is a phenomenon. This phenomenon takes place without permanent self. If there is a permanent self, then every life the person will repeat the same thing. For instance, in previous life, if somebody were a thief, next life also he would be a thief. And he can never get out of it. Always thief every life. If somebody is a murderer in this life, and then next life he will be murdered, because self is not is permanent. It is not immutable. It's not subject to change. So everything is registered in the self. So that self goes from life to life carrying the same thing. So there is no liberation. No liberation. And therefore, we have to understand the phenomenon that operates depending on causes and conditions. The greed, that is desire, tanha, craving, ignorance, ignorance, not knowing the whole mechanism, and the karma that we commit in this life, these three things can trigger the moment. It is a moment of thought moment. Thought moment is not something permanent. It is so flickery, so quickly it changes. And within such the quick moment, next life starts. It starts in the minutest way, in a tiny little the cell. It is not physically visible because it is mental state. Because it is a I tell you few common examples. When you get angry, you really cannot see anger. By the way you express it, somebody can say this person has anger. You can never see anger. You can never see greed in this very life. Why? They are mental states. When you use or when you behave under the influence of greed, hatred and delusion, other people can see or hear the way you behave with anger or greed or lust, jealousy and so on. But those mental states are never visible. Never. That is the mental state. The rebirth takes place exactly because of this mental state. If there is, Buddha was so wise, so enlightened, he saw this happening in one life, next life, next life, next life, until you overcome that mental state. So attainment or liberation is not something physical. It is completely 100% mental, which you cannot see with your eyes, you cannot hear with your ears, you cannot touch with your hands, but that is a mental state. So, friends, we must try to understand mental state as mental state. All physical things, biology, physics, chemistry, and so on and so forth, there are certain machines to measure them. But the mental state you can measure only through the activities, through the nervous system and the brain functioning, the way we speak, the way we hear, and so forth, so many ways mental states express. But there is no instrument to measure or calculate or watch mental states except through physical activities. So we have to understand that. I think Chaturi,
Yes, Bhante.
that's all time we have this morning.
Yes.
I think this point we all must try to understand very clearly. This is called right understanding. When we have right understanding, we can see how we can work with our mind. When we don't have right understanding, then it is difficult until we gain right understanding, not impossible. It would be difficult for us to put ourselves on the right track that leads to right understanding. Now with this I want to end this morning session, and we will continue this talk in next Sunday. And I mentioned Fetters yesterday, and today is its continuation, and next Sunday we will continue that same on the same theme with the different examples. Okay? Now let me end this morning session once again with my metta wish, that is, may all those who are suffering in hospitals from various diseases, and not only COVID but many other diseases, we want to focus our mind on them, and we want to wish them return to normal health and continue their life practicing Dhamma and attain liberation very quickly. And then those doctors and nurses who take care of them, may they continue their wonderful, marvelous service out of compassion and practice Dhamma, live long in good health, and liberate themselves from samsaric suffering. And also those who have lost their loved ones may be grieving, may they be free from grief and continue their Dhamma practice and attain liberation very quickly from samsara. And others who are supporting them in various ways, practicing generosity, supporting financially, may they continue their wonderful service out of generosity, liberate themselves from samsaric by practicing or through the practice of Dhamma. So, I think everybody else, all those who are in various places, going through various difficulties in financial, physical, economic, and so forth and so on, war zone and so forth, may they all find peace, happiness, and liberate from samsaric suffering. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.
Oh, you are
Bhante,
welcome.
Thank you,
sadhu,
Bhante.
sadhu, sadhu, sadhu,
Sadhu, sadhu,
sadhu.
sadhu.